I never planned on driving Route 66 at night. It just happened that way. I'd left Flagstaff, Arizona, late to late after staying behind at a job site to finish paperwork for my boss. It was early October, the kind of crisp evening where the air feels sharper than it should, and I had 5 hours of empty desert highway ahead of me before I could collapse into bed. The plan was simple: get onto the interstate, stay awake with bad coffee and talk radio, and reach Albuquerque by 2 a.m. I wasn't looking for sightseeing. I wasn't looking for detours. And yet, somehow, I took one dot. It started with the GPS glitching. 1 second, the robotic voice was telling me continue straight for 142 miles. And the next it said, turn right in 800 feet. I thought, maybe it had found a faster route, but the turn took me onto a narrow strip of asphalt with no lights, no painted lines, and no signs except one, nearly hidden in the sagebrush. Dawson Pas 12 molest metal was so rusted I could barely read it. I should have turned back right then, but you know how it is, you convince yourself that the map knows something you don't. Besides, the air smelled different here, clean in a way that was almost sweet. And through weeks of living on takeout and diesel fumes, it felt good to crack the window and breathe something fresh. The road curved gently, climbing through low hills. The moon lit up the scrub and the faded fence posts like ghosts of a ranch that no longer existed. I hadn't passed another car since leaving the main road, and the farther I went, the more I had the strange, heavy feeling that I'd stepped sideways into a place I wasn't supposed to be. At exactly 12 miles, the road dropped into a shallow valley, and there it was, Dawson Pas. It looked like something from a postcard rack in a gas station, only the card would have been printed in the 1950s, a main street lined with bright neon signs. A diner with a giant coffee cup perched on the roof. A gas station where the pumps still had analog dials. A little motel with a flickering vacancy sign in cheerful pink. Every building was immaculate fresh paint, clean windows, no graffiti. It shouldn't have been possible. These places along the old Route 66 had either been abandoned or turned into kitschy tourist traps decades ago. But this town looked lived in. I pulled into the gas station, mostly because I didn't want to keep driving without knowing where the next one would be. The attendant came out as soon as I stopped, mid-50s, tall, wiry, wearing coveralls with a name patch that read Earl. His smile was the kind that felt both warm and rehearsed. Evening, little late for a drive, ain't it? Yeah, I said, rubbing the back of my neck. Long day. Just needed gas. He patted the pump like it was an old friend. You're in luck. Still got a full tank underground. Not like those stations up the highway. Power goes out. They can't pump a drop. We run on our own juice. I reached for my card, but he waved it away. Cash only? Friend. $1 a gallon. I blinked. $1 a gallon. He grinned wider. You heard me. Inside the little office, an ancient register sat on the counter, the kind with a crank handle. A radio played something tinny and cheerful, a big band tune I half recognized from my grandfather's collection. Earl counted my change into my hand with the exactness of a man who valued coins. As I was leaving, I noticed something strange. By the door was a glass display case filled with license plates, all neatly arranged in rows. Arizona, New Mexico, California, all from the 1960s or earlier, collecting old plates. I asked. Earl's smile didn't falter, but it stiffened. Somehow, something like that. You take care now. I decided to grab food before getting back on the road. The diner across the street looked like it had stepped out of a time capsule checkerboard floor. chrome stools, red leather booths. A waitress in a pastel pink dress and white apron greeted me like she'd been expecting me all night. "What can I getcha?" "Hun." I ordered a cheeseburger and coffee. When she brought it, I realized the mug was heavy ceramic, the kind you never see in chain diners anymore. The coffee was strong, rich, and the burger tasted like real beef, grilled over something other than gas. It was the best meal I'd had in months. Halfway through, I noticed the people in the diner. There were only 4 of them, 2 older men in trucker caps, a young couple at the counter. None of them were on their phones. None of them even had one on the table. They weren't ignoring me exactly, but they weren't looking at me either. It was like I was a background character in a scene that didn't need me. When I stepped outside, the air was colder. The street was empty now, except for Earl, still standing by the gas station, watching me. I gave him a small wave. He didn't wave back. I got in the car. The engine didn't start. I tried again. Nothing. Not even the click of a dead battery. My phone was still on the passenger seat, but when I picked it up, the screen stayed black. And then I noticed my watch. The second hand wasn't moving. I walked back toward the diner to ask about a mechanic, but the lights inside were off now. Through the glass, the booths were empty, and the counter was bare. No plates, no coffee cups, no waitress. I turned in, a slow circle. The gas station was dark. The motel's vacancy sign was dead. The only light came from a single street lamp humming faintly above me. That's when I saw the police station dot. It was small, like everything else here, and just a square brick building with a glass door. Inside, a fluorescent bulb flickered over a corkboard covered in flyers. Missing persons. Dozens of them. I stepped closer. The photos were in black and white, yellowed at the edges. Names, ages, last seen dates, all from the 1950s to the 1970s. And then, in the middle of the board, I saw one that froze me in place. It was me. Same hair, same jacket I was wearing at that moment. The photo was in color. The date at the bottom read, October 12th, 2024, tomorrow. I stayed there a long time, with my forehead almost touching the glass, fogging it with little bursts of breath that came to fast and shallow, like I wasn't convinced the air was really mine. My own face watched me from the missing persons, bored, the photo glossy and crisp in a way that made it worse. Under it, the date was clean and confident, October 12th, 2024, tomorrow. The fluorescent over the lobby buzzed and steadied and buzzed again, like something was trying to decide what kind of light this moment deserved. I stepped backward into the street. The whole town felt fractionally out of register, like a picture hung slightly crooked that your brain keeps trying to straighten. The neon that had been so confidently bright when I rolled in was now scabbed and tired. The motel's pink vacancy had lost its blush. The diner's giant coffee cup no longer steamed. On the asphalt where my car should have been, there was only a slow dark bloom of oil that looked older than this evening. Evening, someone said. I turned. Earl, the gas station attendant, stood 5 steps away. Same coveralls, same name, Patch, but his posture had softened in some vital way. The lines at his mouth weren't smile lines. They were creases from holding a face shape out of habit. His eyes were so pale the street lamp turned them into glass marbles with a single bubble caught in each. You'll want to get some rest, he said kindly. Big day tomorrow. What happens tomorrow? I asked. Same thing that always happens. He nodded at the street like it had told him a secret. We all have our turn. I blinked, and he wasn't there. No retreating footsteps. No silhouette slipping behind a pump. Just absence. as if the space he occupied had been a loan the town needed back. I ran. The road out of town curved into low, scrubby hills. The paint on the center line so faint it might have been memory. A pair of headlights swelled in the distance and became a pickup the color of dust. The driver rolled his window down with a stubborn crank, looked me over like he'd been given a description of me yesterday, and said, "You lost." My car disappeared. "I need the interstate." He tipped his chin. "Hop in." The cab smelled like oil, leather dried to a whisper, and a sweetness tried not to identify. We drove without speaking. The hills passed and repassed, the same lopsided fence post appearing again and again like a refrain. When he finally spoke, it was as mild as warm milk. "You new to Dawson Pass?" "Tonight, most folks are," he said. "First night's a miracle. Second night's instruction." He slowed, lifted a works-card hand from the wheel, and pointed. "There's your highway. Ahead, a rust-clotted sign listing on a broken post, Dawson Pas as 12 miles. My mouth went dry. "You took me in a circle." He shook his head with real sympathy. "We only got the one road." He leaned across, pushed the passenger door open like a polite usher, and said with practiced gentleness, "Best get some rest. Big day tomorrow." I stepped out onto gravel. When I looked back, the truck was gone. Not even the courtesy of taillights fading, just the long, steady hum of the single street lamp waiting for me on Main like a moth trap. I walked because standing still here felt like offering the night room to grow inside me. The buildings rebuilt themselves around my approach. Hardware, with its neat rows of shovels. 5 and dime with the laughing ice cream boy. Barber shop with a striped pole that spun without moving. The motel's front door was off its hinge, but a desk lamp burned in a small yellow circle like someone had left the sun turned to low. Inside, the register was open to a page of tidy ink names marching down the years. 53, 58, 62, 74, then a yawning blank. Then at the bottom today's date and my name in a hand that wasn't mine. The paper still had the faint damp shine of fresh ink. I reached and touched the loop of the first letter like I could smudge the future. The black held. It didn't drag on my fingertip. It wasn't mine and it was. Footsteps whispered from the corridor behind the office. A man stepped into the doorway wearing a clerk's jacket the color of old paper. His name tag gleamed as if minted this morning. Walter. His skin had the baffling tautness of someone who had become an exact version of himself and then been asked to keep becoming exact. "You want to get some rest," he said. I didn't answer. I backed away, out into air that felt like it had learned the shape of my fear and snugged itself around it. The street wasn't empty anymore. People stood along the sidewalks in careful rows, women in shirtwaist dresses and kitten heels, men in caps and work jackets, kids with haircuts from yearbook photos. Their faces were composed like people waiting for a train they knew would be late but would eventually come. None of them had phones. None of them had keys. None of them wore watches that ticked. I pressed my palms to the diner's chrome handle and bulled through. The door sealed the hum out as if I'd gone underwater. The stillness in there made my ears ache. Booths, counter, a pie case with nothing inside but light dot. My phone lay on the counter like a chess piece someone had set down mid-game. I did not remember carrying it. The screen woke for my thumb and showed one notification, one new photo. I tapped. It was me, outside the police station, staring at the board. The timestamp read October 12th, 2024 to 6:17 a.m. 6 hours from now. The light in the frame the exact radon I'd known since childhood as the color of bad news. The kitchen door squeaked. A tall figure pushed through, the hinges complaining. just enough to make the quiet feel alive. He wore a sheriff's star that had been polished until it remembered being worn. His shirt was storm cloud gray, his hair the color of nickels, his eyes the kind that had learned to be gentle so often they were starting to forget any other shape. "You're right on time," he said. "I'm not staying," I told him. "Everyone says that." His voice was radio low. "Please sit." He didn't raise his voice, but the room did what he asked. My legs found a stool and perched on it like I was visiting my body. He poured coffee without looking, and the mug warmed my palms as if the heat were a message that had traveled a long distance to arrive inside ceramic. "What is this place?" I asked. "Don't say a town. It is a town," he said. And then, when my face must have said try again, "It is also a pocket." Storm took the pass in '59. New interstate skipped us and never looked back. People left, a few stayed. Then something about the way the road lay on the land, the way the wires hummed, the way the hills held sound. He made a small helpless gesture. Time pulled. We learned to live on the edge of it, and the missing board, memory, gets sticky in here. He nodded toward the street. Sometimes what's coming writes itself early, sometimes late. We don't put up those flyers. They show up when they're ready. His mouth tugged sideways. We take them down when people stop asking. That part never got easier. "I'm not staying," I said again. "Tell me how people leave." "They don't often." He looked at my phone, then at me, and something like respect passed across his face. "But you might, if you don't feed it." "Feed what?" "The part of this place that wants your voice." He glanced at the window. "It likes the sounds you make when you think you're alive. Choose your noises careful. Choose fewer." I slid off the stool. "Show me a map." He smiled without humor. "Maps are how people like us lie to ourselves. You saw the sign. 12 miles. 12 miles. 12 miles. Roads can loop when a place decides it needs you more than you need the next town over. Then I'm walking." He nodded, accepting the shape of this argument from 1,000 nights. "Walk behind the buildings. The front of town wants you. The alley doesn't care either way." He hesitated. "If anything calls you by name, don't answer." "Why?" His eyes went softer, and that made it worse. "Because your name isn't a word here. It's a hook." I pushed into the kitchen. Steel and tile, a film of grease you could feel as a taste. The back door was a slab, with a crash bar and a little square of wired glass to hide to see out of. I leaned and shouldered and begged it with my bones. It gave slowly, grumbling like a big animal letting me pass, and spit me into a black that was immediately busy with cold and smell and a sense of space that could not possibly be this small. I moved fast. The alley was a tunnel of cinder block, backsides and rusted stairs and dumpsters that held nothing but the idea of things they had once held. The sky was the kind of dark that isn't really a color, more a weight laid across other colors you can't name. I ran like a person training a dream to remember they had legs. "Hey." A voice behind me, familiar in a way that hit bone. Not the word, the exact pattern of breath around it, the exact drag at the end of the Y, the exact tone it had the last time I'd heard it in a life that wasn't this one. "Wait." I didn't turn. I counted. 5 steps, 7 breaths, 5 steps, 7 breaths. The rhythm jammed itself into my feet and forced them to honor it. The alley widened to sand and sagebrush. My foot slid on round stones in a dry wash, and I went down hard, palms burning. Small sharp smells rose, creosote, something like mint, my own copper breath. "You forgot something," the voice said, closer now. It had changed without changing. It was a voice that practiced me. It slipped in and out of loved voices like trying on coats. I spat grit and ran. The dark thinned a shade to the east, a line of hills resolved like teeth. Between them, a tongue of a road reflecting nothing yet. I thought of the sheriff's warning. Don't answer. Don't look back. Something moved parallel to me in the scrub, not an animal skitter or bound. And whatever you do, don't look back to count how many steps it takes for the street lamp to stop humming.